It's showtime! All right, everybody. This is Nerdside Chats, Week 7, Episodes 8 and 9 of Agatha All Along are on the slate today. Follow me, my friend, to glory, the end, and Maiden Mother Crone. All right, everybody. We've got Jared again from the M6B. And behind the Aki mask, that is not Jason Voorhees, but Tim Collins. I am Dan, the ghost with the most, Beetlejuice today. But these are not the things we talk about, even though we would like to talk about Beetlejuice or Friday the 13th. We're going to talk about Agatha All Along again. We'll start with you, Jarek. Guess first. What was your impression of these last two episodes?
Oh, this is what I was waiting for. This was Avengers Endgame for me. This was just chef's kiss. Kevin Feige really brought it all together. I feel like this is what he's been building up since 2008. Just absolutely loved it. No, I fell asleep and had to finish it this morning. I just couldn't make it through last night. It was too tough. If I do have one nice thing to say, I will say Episode 9 was probably the best of all the episodes. So it's like maybe a 1.5, while all the others were 1s. So I'll give it that.
Oh, Tim, what was your impression?
Just a couple things here. First of all, I'm willing to acknowledge that this show was not for me. Okay, it was not made for me, which most Marvel projects should be geared toward me, but that's okay. I mean, I'm kind of their target audience. But I'm willing to say, you know what, they threw one to a completely different crowd and whatever. I'm willing to do that, but I still don't see how anybody came into this series and ended up getting what they thought they were going to get. If people came into this series thinking they were going to get a fun seasonal Halloween show, they didn't get that. If people thought they were going to get a lighthearted comedy, they didn't get that. If people thought that they were going to get something that was completely disconnected from the MCU but kind of comic adjacent, they didn't get that. If they thought something that was going to be very important to the MCU moving forward, they didn't get that. So ultimately, there's nothing here for anybody, really. I feel like you know, there were a few things that I thought were well done, and I'm gonna actually give them a little bit of props. I did feel like Joe Locke did a pretty good job in the final episode. I feel like his acting was pretty good. I mean, it's not Oscar worthy, but he did a very good job. But, I mean, ultimately, when you got two heavy hitters in the comedy acting world like Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn, and you just can't land the comedy, I just don't know that you've really done a good job of utilizing your resources. And that's kind of where I am with this show. I feel like there were some things that the show kind of ended up being a flashback episode in episode 9, which I thought was kind of a weird choice. I kind of felt like the series felt like it had wrapped after episode 8. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't really think we needed a 9th episode at all. Well, and so I don't know. There was a lot that I was just kind of, that it all felt like a miss to me. And that's not surprising from where we were last week, but I do think that it did not seem to improve to me.
All right. I'm going to hit the comment, and then I'll go over some. Barry Allen is slow. Just what this series needed. A flashback finale with the song repeated over.
Oh, that song. Oh, the song.
Say, my favorite part of the finale, not because it was great, again, but because I know how much you hate it, was how many times they sang that song. And I'm like, Tim's skin has to be crawling right now. That really warmed my heart because your discomfort brings me pleasure.
Just break a glass and pour the shards inside my ears. It would have been so much better. But yeah.
I will say, I texted Tim, and literally, I will tell you guys, everybody out there in the internet land, I liked episode 7. I didn't defend it that great last week because we had a lot of people here. And just to tell you guys, when these guys really hate it, and I just find it funny. It just really amuses me. The amount to which they get upset. And then I was going to come on here and really try to defend these 2 episodes before I watched them. And when I got done, I texted Tim and said, I just wish I liked it more. I mean,
Yeah.
the best I can muster for the show is it was kind of okay. It was kind of okay. It was like it was there. It passed a little time. It just...
That's typical Phase 4, Phase 5 Marvel. I mean, that's typical Phase 4, Phase 5. It's just, meh, okay, you know. That's it.
He summed it up completely in that, like, they've lost... I don't know who you're aiming for here, because if you... Marvel has properties, be it Agatha, be it other things. They have properties within their wheelhouse that they could develop that don't have to be deeply tied into the larger MCU. They could be interesting, standalone projects, maybe even within the greater MCU, but they don't tie in all that greatly, that people could like watch or not watch and not worry about missing it. And you could, the comics. Jerry, you understand? Like Marvel used to publish what, 35 books a month, maybe 40?
Yeah.
And you didn't have to buy all 40 to, like, you didn't have to read last month's Fantastic Four to understand this month's Amazing Spider-Man. You know, until they started doing company-wide crossovers every 3 months, and then you did.
Sure.
But back in the day, you didn't. And so Marvel has properties that they could do this with, but they just refused to do it. I thought that was what this was going to be. And for a long time, it kind of was. But then you're introducing Wiccan. You're going to go find Tommy. You're turning Agatha into a ghost. You're and nothing ever concludes. I understand that comic book is a serial medium, and in the comics, nothing really gets wrapped up. But this was never even presented as anything more than a limited series. They always called it a limited series, and yet it doesn't have a conclusive end. Why not?
Right.
Why not just do one thing that wraps up at the end, and it's over?
I mean, and that's how it was for other things that they've done, right? Werewolf by Night was always a limited thing, and when it was over, it was over. I mean, and could there be a Man-Thing out there? Yeah, but the story had just wrapped up. And I don't know, that was just kind of an odd thing. I mean, Jared, the one thing that I was thinking about you for, though, is Wiccan was in his comic accurate garb. So that had to be that had to be the one thing that you liked about that show, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this perfectly dovetails into the Vision show. I think the Vision show is going to be the bookend. WandaVision is the beginning and Vision is the end, with Agatha in the middle. I think they're going to find Tommy there. I think, to your point, Dan, I thought it was interesting that this episode started with a preview of what's to come. Like, we realize, guys, that this show kind of sucked. And you're probably going to leave episode 9 being less enthusiastic about the MCU. So here's a preview of some fun stuff that you can look forward to. Because, this sucks. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, and even the stuff that we're supposed to look forward to is kind of like, I don't know. I mean, so...
Daredevil.
That's really...
Over and over again.
It better not be bad. That's all I'm saying.
Agatha's supposed to show up in it. The ghost.
But they had Daredevil, and they just kept showing us Deadpool and Wolverine. Just a bunch of clips of this movie that you already wouldn't saw. Because, hey, remember, we made this thing. We didn't have anything to do with it. We tried to stop Ryan from making this movie, but now that you all really like it,
we do too.
We're going to take all the credit. It lambasted us mercilessly for the whole runtime. So we're going to pretend that we're all in for it.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know. There was a lot. And then, like, just so, I mean, I really thought that the episode 8, where they had to figure out the last challenge, it just kind of seemed like one of those convenient endings to me. It didn't really seem like something that should or would have worked. And then I kind of felt like episode 9, when we were looking at the flashback episode, it just kind of felt like it's like we've already done this. This is kind of what we've already done in this particular show already with the Billy story. So both episodes just kind of felt played. It felt like they were running out of ideas. It kind of felt like 3 or 4 different rewrites throughout the series that were Frankenstein together into one season. That's kind of what it felt like. And I didn't really think that it ended up doing really well. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was the worst Disney Plus show, because I think that there were ones that were a lot worse. I mean, She-Hulk was definitely on that list for me. Secret Invasion was the universe-destroying thing where we completely tore an Avenger down, to the point where after Civil War, that wasn't even really him. Okay, so there were things in other Disney Plus shows that bothered me a lot more than the stuff in this series, but this series just did not really reach anybody. And I think that was kind of a missed opportunity.
I was just going to say, when you log on to Disney Plus, that right now it's Halloween, and they have the big, Halloween collection. Front and center on that is Agatha, and this was not a Halloween special.
No, not even at all.
There were episodes that kind of captured that feel for a moment, but they didn't play into it, and they didn't run with that at all, which is kind of what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
What were you getting ready to say, Jared?
I was going to say, do you think that because Secret Invasion and She-Hulk you view as counting, whereas Agatha you can almost discount and say that doesn't really count?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. I think one of the big things with Agatha is that this was a series that I had very, very low expectations for. Now, don't get me wrong, She-Hulk I did not have very high expectations for, because I'm not a fan of the comic, all right? But Secret Invasion, I actually had high hopes, and actually after the first episode, I was kind of stoked. I mean, I think I actually did a review on your channel, Jared, and I think we did the first 2 episodes. Yeah, I think we did the first 2 episodes, and I think I was like, man, I'm excited about where this can go, kind of thing. And then it went where it went, and I was like, So I think that's kind of this show. I had such low expectations that it really was hard to disappoint where I already was. But I do feel like this show just. I don't know who this was for, and I think that's the biggest problem. I don't know who this was for. Like Dan said, if you were looking for a fun Halloween show, I mean, the show ended, just yesterday, the day before Halloween. It was a show about witches. They didn't play into that at all. You know what I mean? I mean, when Hawkeye was released around Christmas, they played up on the Die Hard Christmas stuff like crazy. You know what I mean? They did all kinds of Christmas stuff to try to make, got to get home for Christmas. That was the whole point of his mission, all that stuff. But now you release this around Halloween, it should have been a slam dunk. The writers should have been in the room just trying to say, how many Halloween references can we throw in? They didn't do any of that. And I just feel like it was a huge missed opportunity. This is something that could have been a really easy seasonal crowd that they could have grabbed, and they just completely swung and missed on it.
Yeah, I feel like it was created by committee.
Yeah.
There was too many people pulling too many different ways, and they didn't land on the tone they wanted. Everybody won for like 2 episodes. You know what I'm saying? And so you didn't get a series with an underlying tone. It was just jumping all over the place. And I feel like, and this is something that I've been in the comments, people were all over the comments last week. The people who hate the show and the people who love the show seem to be describing the same show to me, which is the show that I wanted. But to me, it's not that show. The people who love it say, "Oh, it's fun and imaginative and it's spooky and it's Halloween," and I'm like,
it's not any of those things.
I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to tie into the greater continuity, because the greater continuity makes me sad because it's broken. So I wanted something kind of apart from that. I wanted something comedic. I wanted something seasonal. And these people are apparently, they're getting that from this, and I want to, but I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing it.
I think a lot of people come into these shows with the idea that they're gonna have this self-fulfilling prophecy. If they think it's gonna suck, they see a sucky show. If they think it's gonna be good, they see a good show. I always try to come in fresh. I tell everybody, I came into WandaVision completely and totally expecting to hate it. when the trailer dropped, I texted Jared and I said, Jared, I'm absolutely going to despise this show. It looks like absolute garbage. And then the show came out and I was hooked just like everybody else. I absolutely loved that show. So I come into these things with an open mind, and I have my mind changed. And this show, I tried to do the same thing. I had very low expectations, but I am very, very open to a story being interesting and trying to be invested in it, and I just could not get invested in this story. I think that's the biggest thing. You just can't get invested in these characters. You can't get invested in the story. It doesn't feel like the rest of the MCU. That's all.
Josh, the home center, has weighed in. Hello, champs. He just got here. Hey, Josh. Welcome to the stream.
What's up, Josh?
We're all crying on each other's shoulder about the potential here. I did decide last night, after it was over, because I...
Oh, you stayed awake?
What's that?
You stayed awake? You were able to be conscious?
I did stay awake. Actually, I will admit, for the first time, it was very hard for me to stay awake. The 2 episodes in a row, the feeling that they had wrapped almost everything up at the end of the episode 8, I didn't know how they were going to fill 30 more minutes. I mean, I
didn't either.
Feel that it had been Billy all along, but I feel like they could have done that in 5.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I was just so upset that everything keeps continuing, that they keep adding new wrinkles, that they keep looking on new quests and having new characters. Because Tim and I talk about this all the time, and I don't know where you are on it, Jared, but me and Tim are just dyed in the wool. You can't convince us otherwise. The reboot can't come soon enough. Mm-hmm. The reboot is way overdue in both of our estimations. What are you thinking about the need for a reboot?
Yeah, but I think it's harder for me to let go, because I just I just am so in love with what started in 2008. Mm-hmm. You know, the X-Men hit it off for me in '92, and I feel like an honorary member of the team. They are part of my family. I measure things in my life through where the X-Men were during that time, and I can remember, I got married during this, I did this, and through Tina Turner songs. So I know how my life shaped through those 2 things. And now I added the MCU to that this is where Jennifer and I were in our life, and this is what job I had, and this is what I was. I filmed it. I was an extra in Avengers and an extra in Winter Soldier and all this stuff. And so to see it just slowly going down, and then it'll jump back up with Spider-Man, No Way Home, and then it'll come back down, and it'll jump back up. It's really hard for me to let this part of my life go and realize that we're probably not going to get another Winter Soldier. We're not going to have another Infinity War. We're probably not even going to get another Shang-Chi, honestly. It's just not going to be what it used to be. And thinking, gosh, we have to restart this? We have to reboot this? Is this going to be like Batman? And how are we a totally new continuity? Does that mean that then in this new continuity there was no Winter Soldier, there was no Civil War? Then what? Are we pulling new stories for? So it's really, I don't know. It's almost like a slow death. I'm letting this thing slowly die, but I'm not gonna get off the life support until insurance says that they're not gonna pay anymore.
Jared is in the bargaining phase.
There you go.
I think Dan and I have kind of accepted the fact that this thing is dead, and we're just ready for it to move on.
That's where my head was last night when I finished watching this. Is they just don't get it. So I've had to come to acceptance, and I'm going to have to start just taking these things as they come and not comparing them to what I think they should be doing, because they're not going to do any of that. They honestly believe they can keep this whole continuity going into perpetuity. They don't believe they need a new Cap. They don't believe they need a new Iron Man. They think they have a new Cap already that everybody's going to accept and embrace as Cap. So I need to just put that out of my head and take these things as they come at face value. And when you take all that out of it, the show was decent. It was decent. We got a reason.
Was it though? I feel like
it wasn't awful. It wasn't great.
I don't feel like decent is the word I would use. I think
He said DC. He said DC. It felt like a DC project.
Decent implies that I found some level of enjoyment in it, and I really didn't because it wasn't for me. So I would say, and I don't think they spent enough money. I don't think that they really tried to make this a good show. I feel like they kind of put out something with the idea that people would cling to it just because of the season and just because there was some kind of a cult following for this character after WandaVision, but I just don't think that happened. Well, and I don't feel like the writing was there. I don't feel like anything was really there.
I think they spent enough money to make the show that they should have made. You understand what I'm saying?
I think they spent enough money to make exactly what they gave us.
But when you look at their budget, like they couldn't even figure out how to get Aubrey Plaza to leave. So they're like, just take a knife and cut the scene and just walk through the backdrop. Just walk on through there. We don't know how else to get you off.
But I think if it was a fun Halloween thing with not huge ramifications going forward, and it was comedic, then you could have spent less money and delivered that.
I agree with that. I'll agree that
they could have spent even less.
If they had done a show, if they had done a show that took itself less seriously, I could have accepted the budgetary constraints and the bad writing and all that kind of stuff. But this show took itself way too seriously, and I think that's the problem. When something like this takes itself this seriously, you just can't. You just can't do anything but shrug your shoulders at it.
I mean, we were given reasons for the set to be the way that it was, because really it was all just Billy's imagination of how he thought it should be. He really was basing a lot of it on the Wizard of Oz, because he was looking at his Wizard of Oz diorama in his room.
So convenient.
It did kind of look like the Yellow Brick Road. You know, that makes those things features, not bugs. They're hints, but it's the kind of thing where you get to the end and you're supposed to be having this Kaiser Soze moment. Spoilers, if you haven't seen The Usual Suspects, but it's like 20, 30 years old, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Get with the program, man.
Yeah. But you were supposed to have this whole Kaiser Soze moment as he pieced it together, and I don't know. I just don't feel like the drama was there, because they did spend whole episodes where you were getting the fun, light, silly thing a little bit, then they would get serious again, and they never picked a lane. You know?
Well, I gotta pick my lane. I gotta go. I'm sorry, guys. I so appreciate you having me on the show. Tim, if you need a different song to get stuck in your head, don't forget Easy Street from Walking Dead.
Hey, that's right. That's right. Easy Street from The Walking Dead. That's right.
All right. Find Jared at the M6P. They're on all of the social medias. They're right here on YouTube. Like all of their stuff. Subscribe to the M6P. Thanks, Jared. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me.
I know he didn't.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jared. Take care, buddy.
I mean, I will say, even like my wife was still, Jess was enjoying this. She had enjoyed it past some of my qualms, I think, because I really didn't enjoy the episode 6.
Yeah.
Billy's, and she was still okay. But then my daughter watched it with us through episode 3 or 4. And she got busy and couldn't watch it with us because she's in grad school. And she asked my wife today, is it worth finishing it? And my wife was like, oh. The end was kind of, she was like, I was trouble staying awake, and it wasn't great. So that's just one more person. I mean, I know the internet thinks that we're trolls and whatever. I really desperately want it. I mean, up until these last 2 episodes, I was giving this show, I was thinking like, this is like a C, like a solid 75.
Yeah.
Like not a C minus. It's like a C.
I give it slightly. I give it like a C minus, like a 70 maybe, right. 69. Okay.
And I felt like where it was, if they really stuck the landing on the last 2 episodes, right, they could bump it all the way to like a B plus.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? From where it was, with 2 episodes left, I thought they could wrap it up in a way that really make me like it, and then I could come on here and like fight you and Jared with a fiery passion about how good it was. And I thought that would be great for our channel. You know, and I really wanted to have representation of somebody who really liked and enjoyed it. And you know, we don't have a network that is like 50 miles wide, and like the majority of our nerd friends aren't even watching.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's one of the things that just is hard about this show is like when even trying to find people to come on this program with us. I mean, Bonebridger last week, it was the first time he'd ever watched the show. I mean, this is the kind of problem that you run into when you run into a property like Marvel that is trying to reach out to audiences by basically trying to prod these projects by saying, well, if we do this project about this character and we kind of tell them a couple of the other key characters that are going to be introduced, will people even want to watch it? And if they don't want to watch it, well, maybe we can make it so the whole thing just doesn't matter that much. That's kind of the feel that I got from this show. I feel like the story of, first of all, the title character is not the main character. And this is a big problem with Disney Plus. They do this a lot. Right? The main character of this series was Billy Maximoff. And I feel they really have not done a lot of story building to get us to the point where I really want Billy to be considered in the bigger continuity. That I could take or leave the story completely. If you didn't watch this series, I really don't think you missed anything. And I think that Jared hit the nail on the head. Basically, the Vision show is going to be basically about Tommy. That's what that show is going to be, right? So, it's not going to be about Vision at all. And so,
I won't even figure out why he had to run off in the middle of that fight. You know, I mean, it's just. This could have been a fun show about Agatha. I'm trying to, I desperately wanted to really, really like it. I did, because I thought it would be better.
That's how we are with all Marvel properties. And I think that people need to understand. I mean, me and Dan want every Marvel show, every Marvel movie, every Marvel animated show. We want them to be good. I mean, that's why we're here. We love Marvel. We love comics. I mean, you know, I've been reading them since I was 7 years old, you know? And so to get to the point where there's Marvel projects that I'm just sitting here like, is this really the best we can do? You know, is She-Hulk really the best we can put out? Is Agatha really the best project that we can put out? Right? I mean, that's kind of the point that we're at with these shows now. I just feel like we need to reevaluate if that's kind of the case, because DC's in the lurk, and I'm telling you right now, if Marvel's not careful, they're going to get overtaken, because they've got some major properties at DC that are going to really, really, really try to fight against the wind. And they're, you know, when it comes to the new Superman, the new Batman, you know, Marvel's going to have to be ready for that.
And you know, it's just. This show could have been a standalone Agatha show that was fun. I will give them credit for a few things. Agatha didn't have the big face turn that you thought they might try to cram in there. Agatha's, even with her tragic backstory, they gave you a tragic backstory.
They kind of gave the impression she was going to do that, right? They gave the impression that she was going to sacrifice herself, and then she kind of screwed Billy over. Remember, at that one point, she said, and she got him to give himself up, and you know that was the whole thing. Well, but I mean,
even during the events of her tragic backstory, as she raises her son by herself, she travels the countryside, killing other witches to steal their power, and feeling no qualms about it and trying to convince her son he shouldn't either. So, are you under attack, Tim? Is something coming to get you from the ceiling?
No, I'm watching the football game, if you want to. I mean, you know. So, anyway.
So anyway, I will give them credit for not trying to turn her into hero, not trying to make her good by the end of it, and they really didn't do that. She was still doing bad things, like, as a ghost, being selfish. So, at least they didn't do that. But again, they're trying to introduce Billy as this hero figure, and he really was solely responsible for the deaths of Lilia, Mrs. Hart, or Deborah Jo. Kitty.
Deborah Jo Rupp. Yeah,
that was his fault. Alice, that was his fault. He killed these women.
Yeah,
and the only person,
a universe that he created specifically to kill them.
Right.
and that's something that I think was. It was something that was touched upon in our comments last week in the chat, and I think that it's something that kind of was worth looking at. Is this really just something that Billy's just all making up in his head, just like Wanda did? And that's exactly what it was. We saw that it was kind of spurned on by the Salem 7, but that's ultimately what happened. And Agatha, this whole thing about the song and the road and all that, it was all just a snake oil show in order to get people to give her their power. That's all that it was for generations, and she killed how many covens doing that? That was kind of the whole point. So, I don't know. I feel like this show really left a lot to be desired. I was not a fan, but I understand that some people might like the show. I would hasten people from kind of having the self-fulfilling prophecy about this being like one of the best shows of all time. I think twice in the comments there were two different people that used the word masterpiece. I mean, come on, people, pump the brakes, okay? Masterpiece is reserved for like the cream of the crop. There is absolutely no universe that exists in which this is a masterpiece, okay? You need to raise your standards if that's the case. Go touch grass, okay? Go touch grass. Take a break for a little while. This is not a masterpiece, all right? And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was absolutely terrible either. I'm not gouging my eyes out. I'm not tearing my clothes and sitting in the dirt and weeping uncontrollably because it was so awful. That, there's a happy medium somewhere. I can kind of not like it, and you can kind of like it, and that's okay.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I just don't know if it delivered, because Billy is not, the only person left to tell Billy he's not a bad person is Agatha.
Yeah.
And she is a bad person. So, what is, and then she's the only one left to reassure Billy that he didn't kill someone to give Tommy a new body.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to take her word for it?
Yeah.
She's the authority that you trust?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's been killing people for centuries just because.
Yeah.
She likes it, and it's fun. So, again, I'm glad she didn't become good, but if Wiccan is supposed to be a hero, and then again, the budget comes into it, because I know the costume was comic accurate, but it did to me look a little cheap.
Very cheap, yeah.
And then the part where he flew in to save her from death, like, that was like the cheapest flying effect I've seen.
Very lame, very lame. Yeah, and I'm trying not to be dismissive. I'm trying to be more critical, because I do feel like there are reasons why it looked cheap. Obviously, the budget constraints. There were budget constraints in this show, and I feel like that's how it was with a lot of stuff. That's how it was with the demon that we talked about previously. That's how it was with a lot of things. A lot of things in this show are going to look cheap because they were cheap, okay? I mean, let's just call it what it is. This is the lowest budget Marvel show of all time. And the ratings tell the tale. I mean, I know people are going to sit here and try to tell me that the rating numbers were good. The rating numbers were not good, okay? It was 2 million less than the Acolyte premiere week in 2 more days, okay? And the Acolyte premiere was enough to get it canceled. So you need to think to yourself, this cannot be possibly what Marvel thought they were going to get, particularly when you're dropping a show about witches around Halloween, okay? At the very least, you're going to get some people that click on the show and say, hey, what's this fun witch show? It's Halloween time. Let's watch that. And they couldn't even keep those people. The Nielsen showed that they didn't even keep those people. And the reason they didn't keep those people is because those people probably turned on the show. First episode looked like a procedural crime drama, and they just clicked it right off. Okay? So I mean, ultimately, all of the numbers for this show are not going to look good. And I saw articles today that were trying to pump it up. There's no way. These numbers that I saw are the numbers that are fireable offense for anybody that greenlit this project. That's what I saw.
I feel like you could make a lower budget show with a smaller audience, and that could be a good return on investment.
Yeah.
But if that's what you're going to do, you can't use that show as a launching pad for characters that are going to be important to the rest of the larger universe going forward.
And that's kind of the difference between this and Echo, right? Echo was released under the Marvel Spotlight, and basically what that meant was it was part of the MCU, but it was kind of removed from the story so that you could kind of take or leave it. And I didn't personally care for the show. I thought the finale was terrible, but could I see some people watching it and thinking that it was a fun show? Yeah, I could see that. You know what I mean? And they spent virtually no money on it. So there you go. But this right here is another example of Marvel just kind of trying to outthink the room. I kind of feel like this project in and of itself was brought on just by Catherine Hahn having to have her own project as maybe part of why she signed on for WandaVision. That's kind of the way that this whole project felt to me.
I felt from, like, for the first, I don't know how long, right up until the reveal of Billy, that this was a self-contained show that if you liked Agatha enough from watching WandaVision that you were interested in watching an Agatha show, here's an Agatha show. And if you liked her, you can watch this and you can enjoy it. And if you don't, then you could skip it and that's no big deal.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
Yeah.
That's not the case because they shifted the paradigm. They introduced death, which I feel like will probably tie into other things going forward.
Definitely.
They introduced Billy and they left it off. They told us it was a limited series, which we watched it, so okay. But they told the world it was a limited series, which told Marvel fans who weren't expressly interested, and we know a lot of them, that they could skip it and not miss anything. But now they have skipped it, and now Wiccan is here, and Wiccan and Agatha's a ghost, and they're looking for Billy because Billy's back somewhere. And if they skip this and want to go straight into the Vision show,
they're going to have to watch the Previously On, Dan. That's what they're going to have to do. So
Previously On always, like, they have Previously Ons on this, and like there was very little WandaVision in these Previously Ons.
Yeah,
the only WandaVision we ever got in the Previously On was Agatha in Salem. And I could have used a whole lot more, man. Like they could remind us who Boner was. They could have done a lot to help us be, because it was like what, 7 years.
We've been talking for a while now, but I just want to want to think that this kind of a project is ultimately the culmination of someone like Kevin Feige getting what he actually is asking for without realizing it. He's getting what he's asking for from his creative people here. And you know, unfortunately, the comic book people are the ones that are left in the dust. I just feel like the comic book people are not getting what they want from a comic book franchise. And I'm not going to sit here and scream against the fact that all comic books are not for me. They're not. Okay, I've said several times, She-Hulk comic books are just not for me. That's fine. If you want to do a She-Hulk show or some other show that people might like that's not necessarily geared towards me, I'm not saying all comic book series have to be geared towards me. But if you're going to focus on trying to keep the comic book audience, you really need to give us something. I'm ready for a reboot. I'm ready for it to be something new, something different, something fresh, so that I don't have to sit here and do an Agatha review with you. I would love nothing more than to sit here and be doing a review over a different show that matters. I think ultimately we're just all ready for the MCU to be good again, and the only way it can really be good is if they kind of just start over. And I'm not trying to say anything about anything that Disney is pushing. All right, we haven't mentioned agenda or any of that kind of stuff. We're not cheap guys like that. Okay, we're basing this purely on quality, and the quality of the content they're giving us is just not good enough. That's just all there is to it. Okay, so I'm 41. Dan is slightly older than me. Okay, but we're the target audience for the content that they're putting out, and it's just not landing. It's not landing for us at all. So at some point, you got to ask yourself, what do we need to do different? And I feel like, the answers are right in front of them. They're just refusing to see it, Dan. So I don't know. Any thoughts that you have?
I'm a middle-aged father of two, and, from the Midwest. Okay, I was there for the fun comedy Halloween show about lesbian witches. I was going to watch it, and I was going to enjoy it. I really was. I mean, I know that you wouldn't think that I would be down for that or that I would enjoy that, but I was totally in for it. I thought it was going to be the low-budget version.
Yeah.
I didn't care that it didn't have a high budget. I didn't think it needed a high budget for a comedy Halloween show about lesbian witches. I didn't see why you would need to spend that money. It doesn't offend me that they were going to make that show. But they didn't give me that show. They gave me a show that was like a little too serious by half, and they kept trying to tie it. Like when they try to tie it into this continuity, it gets not fun. It's like doing homework. I don't want to do homework. I don't want to worry about like where's Tommy and who's Billy, and then they only spent $10 on this show, so Billy's obviously on a crane when he flies in. They could have spent this money and just had a comedy show, and then nobody would have any bad flying effects.
Yeah.
So again, like, make some standalone stuff for 2 or 3 years while you tool up for the big reboot, and we all learn to miss Iron Man, so that you can give us, and what? Then you can give us a brand new Iron Man, and Robert Downey Jr. can play Doom because it's a whole new continuity, and you don't have to have 6 guys look at him and go, "Hey, is that Tony?"
Exactly.
Or have 6 guys not say that, and the whole audience go, "Why don't they recognize Tony Stark?"
Yeah.
So that's where
that makes sense.
I was ready for this. They didn't give me that. But they're not going to, so I'm just going to take it as it comes now. Until then,
all right.
Like, share, subscribe, right, Tim?
Yep, definitely. Share, subscribe. Don't eat too much Halloween candy. And go ahead and comment on all our videos. We love arguing with you guys.
Hey, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.